Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rampal Gill, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you all to the Rubin Observatory Open House. We actually have quite a few people on, 40 people at the moment. I'm sure some more will join soon. And thank you all so much for coming. I know you've got choices of where you could be. We have a number of speakers today who will be updating you on construction and operations activities, as well as things that are important for the community. And the final presentation will be from the LSST Corporation. If you have any questions, the only way to really ask them is through the AAS Slack channel, which is specific for this open house splinter. It's called Splinter Vera C Reuben, if you search for it. In there, you can ask your questions and we'll try and get to them. And otherwise, we will be answering those at the end of all of the presentations. For now, I'll kick off our first presentation, handing you over to the Rubin Observatory Director, Steve Kahn.
Okay, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where you're located. We appreciate your attending our session. This is the agenda that we've laid out for you for the hour and a half in which we'll have your attention. There are various elements to the Rubin Observatory, so I just want to call attention to that. We are still in construction, so there is a construction project. I am the director of that project. You'll hear an introduction from me and some updates on construction progress from our project manager, Victor Krabendam. There is also an operations team that has begun working, even though the facility is not completed. The acting director of operations is Bob Blum, and he and his team will present a number of slides on that. And then we have a presentation from Fed Bianco on behalf of the Science Collaborations and the Science Advisory Committee for the Rubin Observatory. So that is sort of the main vehicles for outreach to the astronomical and physics communities generally. And then you'll hear a presentation from Janos Sokolsky from the LSST Corporation, which is a privately funded entity that has various activities for enabling science with LSST. And then finally, we'll try to answer as many of your questions as we can, as time allows, through the Slack channel, as Rampal indicated. So thanks, Bob. Could you advance to the next slide? So I will make a few introductory comments about construction. First, as many of you, I hope, are aware, this project used to be called the Large Synoptic Survey Telescope, but it was formally renamed to be the Vera C. Rubin Observatory, actually through an act of Congress, which was enacted at the end of last calendar year, and I mean 2 calendar years ago in December of 19. And was formally instituted by the NSF at the beginning of 2020. We did keep the LSST acronym, which of course has longstanding presence in the community, through the new name for the initial 10-year survey that will be performed by the Rubin Observatory, which we are now calling the Legacy Survey of Space and Time. It's a redefinition of what each of the 4 letters mean, but it keeps the original acronym. We are, however, quite proud to be named after Vera Rubin, who was a pioneering female astronomer. As most of you know, made major contributions to our understanding of dark matter. The Rubin Observatory will actually be the first major national scientific facility named after a woman scientist, and so we're very proud to have that distinction. I want to just comment that the proper short form of the Vera C. Rubin Observatory is Rubin Observatory. We and the National Science Foundation and the Department of Energy strongly discourage the use of acronyms like VRO or VCRO referring to this facility. We want to continue to honor Vera by maintaining her name front and center in scientific papers that result from this high-profile observatory. Just in the last few months, we've adopted a new logo for the facility as well. You can see it on each of our slides in this presentation. It's called out here. It was an extensive process, a quite consultative process with all of the stakeholders on the facility. and just various elements of the logo. The things that look like stars and galaxies represent the community, the diversity of ideas and of objects that we'll survey with this facility. The arcs indicate the sort of time domain element of the Vera Rubin Observatory, and also make references to the Aura logo and the Noir Lab logo. The color of the logo, you can see that's teal, is actually quite close to the color of the physical telescope mount. And so it anchors to the physical facility. And on the right-hand side, you can see these things that look like electronic traces and electronic boards, and those indicate the connections to big data. Of course, the Vera Rubin Observatory will produce one of the largest astronomical data sets ever recorded. Next slide. So just to cover what's been happening since we last met with you last January, it's been quite an interesting year for all of us. As for nearly everything else in the world, the COVID-19 pandemic has, of course, had a major impact on the Rubin Observatory construction project. We were forced to stop all activity on the summit in Chile in around mid-March. We had two major contractors on site at that time, an Italian company that was assembling the dome and a Spanish company that was assembling the telescope mount. And they both had to return to Europe. And in fact, getting them back into Chile has been one of the major challenges that we faced in the ensuing months to resume work. As some of you know, we're constructing or assembling the camera at the SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory in Menlo Park, California. That, of course, was also impacted. The lab shut down nearly completely from March until May, and it has only allowed a limited number of essential personnel back on site ever since. Next slide. So given these constraints, we did resume work on the assembly and testing of the camera over the summer. We lost about 3 to 4 months there. We have been able to restart infrastructure work on the summit as of September. The dome team partially or nearly fully came back from Italy in October. The telescope mount assembly team has started to return as of last week. And we expect to reinitiate work on the telescope mount assembly at the beginning of February. So despite the fact that COVID has not totally settled down, we have made progress, and we're trying to get this back on track. Of course, work on software and other non-site specific activities associated with construction has been able to continue with our staff on a work at home basis. But the net delay precipitated by all of these impacts is now projected to be about 1 year. We haven't put together a new schedule entirely yet, so that's an estimate, but about 1 year. And continuing to allow some schedule contingency associated with the work to go, which is still substantial. Next slide. Of course, the health and safety of our staff and of their families has remained our highest priority. Both AURA, which is the managing organization for the NSF work, and SLAC, which is the managing organization for DOE, have established rigorous COVID protocols to ensure that there is minimal opportunity for spread of the virus while employees are engaged in on-site activities. The conditions for shutdown and restart activities are site-specific because the nature of the COVID outbreaks has differed from different locales, in particular Chile, Arizona, California, and at our vendor facilities in Europe. So we've had to make accommodations at each of these places. But we've done that, and not surprisingly, the safety considerations lead to further inefficiencies, which have also affected progress on the project. Next slide. I want to emphasize, however, that both the National Science Foundation and the Department of Energy have remained very strongly supportive of the Rubin Observatory and are fully committed to the successful completion of the project despite the delays. The financial impacts are quite considerable. At least about $50 million we're projecting between both agencies due to marching army costs and other issues caused by the shutdown. For the DOE side, the construction of the camera, which is called a major item of equipment project, we have been able to mitigate the impact to some degree by declaring an early completion of the project after demonstrating key performance parameters and including some remaining activities under commissioning, which is funded through a different account. For the National Science Foundation Major Research Equipment and Facility Construction Project, the financial hit will exceed the remaining contingency that we had available on the project. And so this requires a rebaselining of the project, and we're working with NSF to bring that about. I want to emphasize this whole situation is unprecedented, of course, at both agencies, and all of us, including our government colleagues, are learning how to deal with it as we go along. Next slide. Before turning over to Victor to let him review some of the details of the construction progress, I want to make a couple of comments about commissioning. We have been engaged in preparation for commissioning for the past year or so. And of course, that's ramping up significantly now that we're getting back to the task of completing the facility. And we expect the community to play a significant role in helping us to plan and execute the commissioning project. In particular, we've reached out to the Rubin Observatory Science Collaborations for suggestions from them on inputs as to what kind of mini surveys or particular observations that would meet our commissioning purposes would also be most useful, in particular for our 4 science drivers, exploring the nature of dark energy, studying stars, Milky Way and the local volume, the transient universe, and studies of the solar system. So we did get those inputs. Those were quite useful. There's still time, however, to contribute through the Rubin Observatory Science Collaborations, or you can contact specifically Keith Bechtold at the address here, or Chuck Claver, who are 2 of our lead commissioning scientists. We will synthesize these observing inputs into a coherent set of options for the commissioning team, and then we'll iterate to develop specific and detailed observing plans as we get closer to the onset of commissioning operations. Next slide. And then I want to emphasize that we're also interested in engaging with the community for direct participation in the commissioning effort. We will seek contributions to commissionings from the community at large. As we get closer to the commissioning timeframe, we'll actually formalize this in how such contributions can be made. The basic requirements are that each contributing institution will provide a single point of contact who will serve as a PI for that activity. We need assurance that the resources and time available will be there for the tasks that we would assign. We will formalize this through an MOU with the proposing organization. The data analysis work associated with commissioning, however, must serve our technical goals and cannot be used for scientific publication. Our primary interest here is in demonstrating that the observatory has met its main requirements, and also allowing us to characterize the as-built performance. If there are individuals in your institutions who are amenable to spending some on-site time in Chile, that should be indicated and will be of special interest to us. So what are the rewards for engaging in the commissioning team? You would get immediate access to all of the data that we're acquiring as it's acquired. And of course, working with us, you would develop a deep understanding of the Rubin Observatory performance and the nature of its data before the full data sets are released to the community. So going forward, we will issue a call for letters of interest around early March of this year, so within a few months. These won't be very extensive proposals, just letters of interest so we can canvass what's available, and then we'll proceed from there. Okay, let me now turn it over to Victor Krabendam, who is our project manager, and he will go through some of the technical progress. Thank you.
So I have 15 minutes to give you a quick update, and of course that can only be very summary level, but let me just start with the beginning of the year when things were still looking bright with our new name, and we were making great, exciting progress all across the project. And some imagery here just gives you a good representation of the stage we were at with many systems arriving on the summit. In fact, all the hardware systems were there. We were getting a lot of progress with our software and hardware engineers working hand in hand to really start some of the commissioning, as you can see in these pictures. And on the far right, we were also starting the final progression of activities leading up to getting ready to coat the primary mirror as well. And so we were fully engaged, if you go to the next slide, Bob, on activities inside the building. We were making great progress finally in so many cases with the dome activity. And in fact, the telescope mount had started work right about January of this time last year. And throughout the first couple of months, they were in fact ahead of schedule. And so hardware was going well. Next slide, Bob. And we were also doing well with just the detailed commissioning of software with our auxiliary telescope in operation. And as is evidenced by these images, you can see the team spread out on the summit on the left and in Tucson on the right, and in fact many other locations on the globe, doing the work of the hard work of commissioning the software and all of the IT infrastructure necessary to operate the facility. So we were doing well. And the next slide, Bob. And of course, as Steve mentioned, and as we all are very painfully aware, that about March, we were forced to close up the facility. Now, close up the facility is relative because, as you can see from the image, we were reluctant to leave with as much of the facility undone as it was. In addition, we were also about to do some power upgrades. So when we left it completely dormant, no power and nobody. And so next slide, please. We spent the next several months doing targeted visits to do any number of protecting exercises and keeping the facility as safe as possible, keeping it lubricated. In some cases, we had shipments in progress and had to receive those. And some other equipment that didn't belong to us had to be removed. And so this was many, many months of activities whenever we could get a team on the summit, which was roughly once a week, maybe up to twice a week. And of course, with winter coming on, those visits became more and more challenging. And I'm really happy to report that the team was able to fight back the elements. And we believe that we have pretty much kept any major damage from happening with this building as open as it was during the winter. Next. Of course, all of that activity was done, as Steve mentioned, with COVID in mind. And I just wanted to give a short shout out to our safety teams, and in fact, the whole team for really engaging, taking this seriously, working on ways in which we could keep our teams and our families safe as we pursued these activities. And the image on the right is a small example of one of those target teams that would go up for a one-day visit to try to take care of the facility. Next. One interesting item that was in progress was the shipment of our commissioning camera that was just leaving Tucson right when things were getting difficult. And so we had to continue that shipment and have people on the ground in Chile when it arrived. We were unable to get it to the summit, but we're very happy that we had the space in our data facility to get the ComCam up and running so that we could verify that it had made it and through the international shipping part. Got some imagery, and most importantly, we had it in place and ready for it to support the operations rehearsal activities that we had going on in the middle of the summer, where we exercise the entire system, and DM does it, in fact, just like the name, does a rehearsal of what it will be to take on data at the various times and what the procedures would be. And so that was far more successful with our ability to have ComCam actually generate the initial data. Next, please. DM has also been able to weather this period, making excellent progress, continuing with science pipelines and algorithms, and essentially staying on schedule in a large part with the work that they've been doing. Of course, this particular year, we started to face some new challenges, or foresee some new challenges with satellites, and some of that capability has always been planned. For the rejection of such streaks was always planned in the software, and of course that got some new vigor and some new attention this year. But as you can see from this slide, there was also good progress with just general releases and general incremental progression of the data management stack. Next. So that was the picture throughout. For the summit throughout that first summer period. And I just wanted to point out that the team has in all cases been trying to look for opportunities to continue doing the testing and troubleshooting that was necessary. In midstream, we stopped everything with several issues, small and large, on our plates. And the team was able to move that hardware to the right places, including hard actuators to Tucson, and to be able to do in some of those inspection visits, some actual very careful and important troubleshooting exercises to make sure that we didn't let the time that we were away from the facility actually do more and more damage. And so this is this was very productive and successful. In that we believe, in this case also, we have not suffered any long-term impacts. Next. So Steve mentioned the camera has been making good progress at SLAC, and this is just a plethora of pictures just to show you the amount of hardware. And at this point, all hardware is at SLAC and is in various stages of implementation and integration, except for the filters, which are about half done in their coding activity at their vendor. Next. The key activities throughout this period, as the team slowly was able to return back to SLAC, was very focused on the cryostat, which was just getting sealed up at the beginning of the year, the refrigeration system, a lot of utility trunk work, and all of that has been moving forward this whole year, and led to the next slide, which is the real pinnacle of the success of the cryostat, the integration, showing the entire focal plane in operation, and this really nice image taken by the integration team through a pinhole camera, showing Vera Reuben in a lab early in her career. And of course, the image is fun, but really the exercise is the electro-optical testing that's been going on. And that's been going very well, showing that, for example, the noise distribution looks good and is consistent with what the performance was when we tested rafts individually. And so this has been a real success this year and a real boost to show the progress. Next. The Education and Public Outreach team also continues to make really great progress. They were scheduled to do a lot of education, formal education testing, and that was all scheduled to be in person with teachers and members of the community. And that all had to be switched over to online activities, which they continued and made the best of and were able to make good progress with. There's also been lots of good activity with some of the interactive widget developments to build up the tools that are going to be necessary to engage with our data set. And I would invite you, not just for the education public outreach parts, but for any of the hardware parts, if you would like to get some more information and get to see the real status, please do come to the booth. We have people at this conference, even though it's virtual, lots of people around that can point you to some of the real exciting demonstrations that we have, and some additional information on what the status is. So if you go to the next slide. So the team continues to make progress. We, like all of you, are predominantly working from home. We have teams at Slack, we have teams on the summit doing heroic work to keep the project going as well as we can, and as smooth as we can, and of course, most importantly, as safely as we can, both for COVID reasons, but also for industrial safety. And so, as Steve pointed out, with all this work going on, and we can finish with the last slide, the big question remains, well, what's the schedule and when will we be done? And what we've been telling the commissioning or the operations team is that we forecast that we are about 1 year late, as Steve had already mentioned, and we are watching how we start up over the next couple, especially the next month, with our telescope mount integration team just arriving, to see exactly when we can do the formal replanning and get the detail out, so that we can start the project back up again with a full plan that we can work to and set and report on. But with that, I'll not only hand it over to Bob, but let him tell you that their plans for accepting the building when we do provide it, even though it will be a year or so later.
Thank you, Victor. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the operations segment of the Vera C. Reuben Open House of the 237th meeting of the American Astronomical Society. It is a real pleasure to be here with you. My name is Bob Blum, and I have the privilege of being the acting Reuben Operations Director. Today, myself and several members of our team are going to cover with you some highlights of our 2021 operations activities. I'm joined by Melissa Graham, Amanda Bauer, and Phil Marshall, and they will introduce themselves as we move through this 15-minute presentation. We are currently in our pre-operations phase, and today we will cover briefly some important planning milestones due this year and introduce you to community engagement for Reuben operations. We will tell you about the exciting opportunity coming soon with Data Preview 0 to directly engage the community in using the Legacy Survey of Space and Time simulated data on our own Reuben Science platform. DP0 for short, DP0 for short is deployed on the Google Cloud platform. We will remind you where we are on selecting the Legacy Survey of Space and Time cadence, and then finish with a few bullets on the in-kind contribution program. This extensive program is being built to significantly enhance the support for our LSST community science goals and engage our international colleagues. As you saw from Victor and Steve, despite our challenges, great things are happening in Chile and California, and the survey is coming. We are really excited to be moving forward with you. In pre-operations, we are developing the detailed plan that will execute the LSST. We are standing up 4 departments in order to execute the survey. Observatory operations will relentlessly capture photons from Cerro Pachón in Chile, sending raw images to our data production team. We'll process the images at our data facility at Slack and make alerts on transient events in the night sky every 60 seconds available to the whole world. They will also produce catalogs and co-added images every year and make them available to you through our science platform. Our system performance team will validate the data and ensure the whole system is running as designed, and we will use the data to inform, engage, and educate the public, including through a dedicated citizen science program. And we'll do it over and over pretty much every night for 10 years. Our goal is to do all of this while engaging deeply with the community, including with scientists, educators, and students from smaller and underserved institutions. The LSST is an opportunity to reach communities in ways and at a scale that we have not done before. We will submit our full plan and funding proposal this year to the NSF and DOE, and we invite you to check back with us next year at this time at this meeting so we can tell you how we did. The proposal will go in December. Our team is ramping up this year and will continue to grow until we start the full survey in 2023. We have about 100 people doing about 40 FTE of effort in the plan this year. Maybe the most exciting thing that we're going to do this year is present a data preview for the community, which Melissa is going to tell you about next. So please take it away, Melissa.
Great, thanks, Bob. Right, so the Rubin Observatory Community Engagement Team invites you, first, before we talk about DP0, invites you to visit the Rubin Observatory booth in the NSF Pavilion, pictured here at left, and especially to visit the booth's chat room. We look forward to answering your questions, of course, and also to just generally chatting about the science you're interested in pursuing with the LSST. Interacting with future users helps us in our community engagement efforts to prepare the infrastructure and resources that will support astronomers during operations. In particular, clicking on the picture of the galaxy above preparing to do science with Reuben will take you to the webpage shown at right, which the community engagement team has populated with a series of short introductory presentations about the Rubin Observatory data products and services. And if you scroll down on that page, you'll find more information and also a list of potential action items to help you prepare for science with Reuben. Next slide, please, Bob. Okay, community participation in Data Preview 0. So in June of this year, the Rubin Observatory will release Data Preview 0, the first of 3 data previews which are planned to occur between now and the start of operations. The 2 primary goals of Data Preview 0 are 1, to serve as an early integration test of the LSST pipelines in the Rubin Science platform, and 2, to enable the community to begin to prepare for doing science with the LSST. So to meet these goals, Data Preview 0 will make simulated LSST-like data products available in the Rubin Science platform for up to 300 scientists, which is an order of magnitude increase relative to the current number of science user accounts. The Rubin Science platform, which might be a new term for some of you, is the web-based software system that astronomers will use to access and interact with the LSST data products. So for example, querying catalogs, viewing images, writing and running analysis codes, making plots, all of that can be done in the Rubin Science platform. Those simulated LSST-like data products that I mentioned, which are being used for Data Preview 0, will be, have been already generated by the LSST Dark Energy Science Collaboration. So this simulation primarily contains extragalactic and galactic objects and also has some transients and variables. So the application form to be one of these 300 scientists participating in Data Preview 0 will open in early March. So to ensure you receive timely notification about that opportunity, please subscribe to our science mailing list at lsst.org/scientists. We're looking for as wide a variety of participants as possible, so no experience with large surveys or science platforms is required, and students are very welcome to apply. The only prerequisite for participating in Data Preview 0 is to have Rubin Observatory data rights. All astronomers working in the US and Chile have data rights already, including students, as do named individuals on international contributor teams. So to find out more, during the AAS, we're running 2 drop-in information sessions about Data Preview 0 at the Rubin Observatory booth. They're on Wednesday at 2 p.m. and Thursday at 3 p.m. Or for more information about DP0, please visit ls.st/CLO4618. And that's all I wanted to tell you about today. And I think from here, I pass it to Amanda.
Indeed. Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Bauer. I'm the Deputy Director for Rubin Observatory Operations on the Noir Lab side. I'm so excited about this project that I decided to dye my hair, about half of it, to match the colors of Reuben. Unfortunately, we're all working from home, so you can't really see it very often. Anyway, it's fun. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the actual observations that the Rubin Observatory will be making. The baseline survey strategy is in existence, and it's designed to meet the basic requirements to achieve the core science goals of the legacy survey of space and time. So you can see a little bit more information about that at the link that's provided there. The baseline design, one of the key elements, the main survey, is the wide, fast, deep survey. And you can see the footprint of that on the sky over on the left as far as the baseline design goes. So the design elements are that it should cover about 18,000 square degrees, an average of 800 visits per field over the 10 years of the survey, and some description of pair observing of the same field and the same night, and things like that. So while the state of the construction project and the operations simulations that we've been doing so far have established and convinced us that we are going to meet these goals, there is still room to optimize the LSST to maximize the scientific return. So ways that you can do that, you can look at the actual footprint. So what's here is the baseline plan, but some of the operations simulations have suggested maybe a different footprint would maximize a scientific return. We can also do that through the filters, how often we change the filters. And the main aspect here that I want to talk about is the cadence. So if you go to the next slide, Bob. The cadence refers to how often fields are visited, both within a given night and in between nights. And so this is for the wide, fast, deep main aspect of the LSST. So how do we determine what the optimal cadence is? In 2020, we formed the LSST Survey Cadence Optimization Committee. It's quite a mouthful, but it's a very useful committee who is charged to recommend specific survey cadences for commissioning, early science, and the full 10-year survey. So to get information about any of those, the resources on the right, you can see the actual charge for the committee. You can watch videos and see slides from the first workshop that happened between the committee and the science collaborations just last month. So that's very up-to-date information. And there's an opportunity for you to give some feedback. The SCOC would really like to hear from your perspective of how the cadence should be optimized. So they're requesting information and input from the science community on primarily the over 100 operation simulations that have been run and metrics that have been determined that have been proposed to measure how effective certain cadences for different types of science areas. So you can see the call for the cadence notes. It's ls.st/doc-36755. And the deadline for those bits of feedback are March 15th, 2021. So that's all I have to say about that. And I will now pass to Phil.
Hi everyone, good to be with you. My name's Phil Marshall. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations for Reuben at SLAC. Just thought I'd tell you a little bit of an update about what we've been doing with our international colleagues. So for many years now, it's been planned for the LSST to serve a large international science community. We've been interacting with colleagues across the world for some time, getting ready for science with the LSST data. What we've been doing over the last year is working quite hard on a program for what that will actually look like. So the idea is that international teams around the world will take part in the analysis of the LSST data, having made in-kind contributions either to the observatory or to the science infrastructure, the science capabilities of the LSST science community. So this is a program that's designed to leverage the great interest around the world in LSST into direct science support for the US and Chilean communities. So it's a great opportunity for those of us in the US and Chile, and by extension around the world, to make the most of the LSST data. So right now we're evaluating proposed contributions from around the world. These contributions will be in a variety of forms, new telescope time, new data that wouldn't have been accessible to us otherwise, computing resources, different computing centers around the world looking to serve and support the analysis of the LSST data, and also software development effort to be embedded in the Rubin teams or the LSST science collaborations to help build the tools that we'll need to analyze the LSST data at the required scale. So this is a large program. The total equivalent value of these in-kind contributions proposed is almost $250 million over the course of the survey. So this really is a fantastic opportunity for the LSST science community. One thing with this large program, getting it set up. It's taken a lot of work by our community-based contribution evaluation committee. So I want to say a big thank you to all of those people who've been helping us review these proposals and get this program off the ground. If you'd like to follow along with this, you can do so at community.lsst.org, where there's a tag for in kind. We try and keep everyone up to date with what's going on there. You'll hear more about this over the coming years as these contributions start being made and we start to see real benefits from our international partners. Thanks a lot. Next slide, Bob. Oh, you're muted, Bob. Bob, we can't hear you. You need to unmute.
Thanks, Phil. We look forward to seeing all of you in 2021. Thanks for coming and joining us, and please come see us with your questions and comments at the Reuben booth. And now we're going to move on to a Science Collaborations and Science Advisory Committee presentation by Fed Bianco that has been taped. And I'll just start it up here.
Hello, my name is Federica Bianco. I'm from the University of Delaware, Department of Physics and Astronomy, and Joe R. Biden School of Public Policy and Administration. And I serve as the Science Collaborations Coordinator and the Transients and Variable Stars Science Collaborations Co-Chair of the Rubin Legacy Survey on Space and Time. The Science Collaborations are 8 self-managed, self-governed science teams. They were created to make the scientific case for Rubin that made it the foremost ground-based priority of the 2010 Decadal Survey, and to prepare the astronomical community to do science with the data that will come from this transformational survey. The science collaborations are organized based on scientific interest and expertise into 8 teams. The AGN Science Collaboration, Dark Energy Science Collaboration, or DESC, Galaxies, Informatic and Statistics Science Collaboration that leads advances in data science and astrophysics in the context of Rubin, Solar System Science Collaboration, Stars Milky Way Local Volume, Strong Lensing, Transients and Variable Star Science Collaboration. Each team ranges in size from a few tens to a few hundred, and altogether the science collaboration are comprised of over 1,500 members. Physicists, astronomers, data scientists, and software engineers. 5 continents are represented and over 20 countries. Why should you become a member of a science collaboration? While no science topic is reserved for any group within Rubin or outside of the Rubin Observatory, and that includes the science collaboration, and Rubin is preparing to support the entire scientific community in the exploitation of its data, including by the creation of the community engagement team that you heard about in an earlier talk by Melissa Graham. The science collaboration are designed to be a supportive and collaborative environment that works in close connection with the Rubin Observatory and that has been preparing to do LSST science for over 10 years. They're simply the best place to learn how to turn Rubin data into science. Anybody with data rights can apply to become a member of any of the science collaborations. International members are allowed to apply on a provisional basis as provisional members or observers until the in-kind contribution process is finalized. There are no membership fees, there are no requirements to be affiliated with any specific organization, and there are no requirement of minimum time commitment to participate in any of the science collaborations. Ultimately, the science collaborations aspire to be an inclusive and nurturing environment for scientists interested in pursuing LSST-based science. In the current troubling social and political landscape, the science collaborations are in fact working with renewed vigor to make sure that the organization is in fact diverse, equitable, and inclusive, and ultimately just. Activities along those lines include the creation of new initiatives, the DES EDI group and the TVS JEDI group, for example, designed to improve diversity and inclusion within each of the science collaboration. Other science collaborations already had similar initiatives. The science collaborations are participating to Rubin-wide initiatives on DEI, including the series of meetings that followed the DEI session at the last PCW, which was also led by the science collaboration and Rubin jointly. And that will lead to next year's PCW anti-racism workshop, which will be sponsored by the LSST Corporation. Joint initiatives of the science collaboration towards diversity, equity, and inclusion include creating new member onboarding program, a diversity, equity, and inclusion council that will connect the activities of the science collaborations towards DEI with those of Rubin and the ORA Chief of Diversity Officer, and activities on recruitment and outreach that are really designed to make sure that we reach out to the communities that are traditionally withheld from STEM, including by participating to meeting of affinity societies. For example, TVS had a booth at the National Society of Black Physicists this year. What do the science collaborations do? The science collaborations are an ideal environment to design and test user-generated data products and pipelines. They're a nursery for Rubin software. A lot of the software that will support transformational science with Rubin has been created within or in close collaboration with members of the science collaborations. These include a large number of alert brokers and the TOM toolkit. The science collaborations are working on core Rubin problems, such as the classification of transients and de-blending of galaxies. Some of these problems are worked out in the context of data challenges. For example, a collaboration of the DESC and TVS science collaborations created the Plastic Astronomical Classification Data Challenge, the most well-attended astrophysical challenge on Kaggle. In addition, the science collaborations, but particularly the DESC science collaboration, led effort to simulate Rubin data. I want to flag the Thursday's session of the Rubin Observatory LSST Dark Energy Science collaboration, which will happen at 12 p.m. Eastern, where the desk will present its current activities, including the release of the second data challenge, the most comprehensive extragalactic simulation of Rubin data, which will serve as a test bed for Rubin software, Rubin data pipelines, as well as user-generated data pipelines. Another activity that the science collaboration are best placed to support is the exploration of synergies between Rubin and other surveys. For example, the majority of the science, the most transformational science that Rubin will produce will come not from Rubin data alone, but from combining Rubin data and combining even observing strategies between next generation surveys, such as the Roman telescope and Euclid. While the synergy between Rubin and other probes, such as Euclid, have been explored in detail and appreciated for a long time in the extragalactic domain and in the study of dark energy, in the galactic context, these synergies remain comparatively unexplored. I want to pitch Etienne Bachelet, who's a TVS member. Etienne Bachelet's talk in the Splinter session, Exploring the Transient and Variable Universe with the Roman Space Telescope, that will specifically talk about the promises of synergies between Rubin and Roman observing strategies to address microlensing. In addition to these primarily scientific activities, the science collaboration also provide expert opinion and analysis for Rubin. They do so by participating in a number, but really all, of the committees of Rubin Observatory, including the SAC and the Committee for Evaluating Contributions, that is, evaluating in-kind contributions from international partners. One other core activity of the science collaboration, however, is fundraising. And this is primarily because the science collaboration are self-managed and do not receive funding from NSF, specific funding from NSF or DOE, with the exception of the Dark Energy Science Collaboration that receives specific support from DOE. This means that the science collaborations have to continuously fundraise to support their activities. And it is in fact a problem because it causes us to be unable to plan on long-term activities and long-term participation of members. We hope to have the opportunity to discuss this both with the agencies and with philanthropists in the near future to solve this problem. The fundraising that the science collaborations do is largely done in collaboration and with the support of the LSST Corporation, where the science collaborations advise the corporation on the fundraising portfolio to assure that the portfolio is supportive of the science collaboration themselves, but more in general, supportive of truly transformational Rubin science and supportive of an equitable, of the community in an equitable way. So contact the science collaboration if you want to find out more or if you want to become a member. You can contact me at fbianco@udel.edu, the Science Collaborations Coordinator, or you can find the contact of each one of the Science Collaboration and their application page through the LSST Corporation portal at www.lsstcorporation.org/science-collaborations. On my last slide, I want to describe and remind you of the existence of another pillar of the Rubin community, the Science Advisory Committee. The Science Advisory Committee of Rubin Observatory was initially constituted in 2005. The SAC does represent the entire scientific community and gives official advice to Rubin management on technical and policy questions related to the observatory. Recently, the Science Advisory Committee has worked on advising the selection process for community event brokers, developing a charter for the Rubin Observatory Science Collaborations, such as that the science collaborations can be officially recognized and work on the basis of shared principles, designing a set of operation simulations to finalize the survey cadence, and advising Rubin on data right policy. The Science Advisory Committee is eager for input from the community on all of these topics and on any topic that is relevant to the Rubin Observatory. So if you have questions or opinion, you can write to the Science Advisory Committee by writing to any of its 16 members to express opinions and concerns or suggestions. You can find the list of the members and their contact information at project.lsst.org/groups/SAC. Thank you.
Oh, okay, that was Fed Bianco. Thank you very much, Fed. I'm sure we'll catch up with her later at some point. Next up is Jenno Sokolowski, who's going to talk to us about the LSSTC. I did want to mention that Michael Strauss, the chair of the SAC, and Rachel Mandelbaum will be around at the end of this session also to answer questions for the science collaborations in the SAC if those come up as well. So Jenna, go ahead.
Thanks, Bob. In my role at LSST Corporation, I talk to people practically every month who are understandably confused about the difference between the Rubin Observatory Project, the Rubin LSST Science Collaborations, and LSST Corporation, or LSST. So today I'll review, for those of you who already know, or tell those of you who are not familiar with LSSTC, what we are and what we do. So like for example, the Audubon Society or the Humane Society, we are a member-based nonprofit. We don't have a formal connection to the Rubin Observatory Project, although we do work closely with them. Like those other nonprofits you might have heard of, we have a mission, but in our case, it's not saving wildlife. It is maximizing the scientific output and societal impact of Rubin LSST. So also, our members are not individuals, they're departments or institutions. So currently we have about 30 institutions that are members, and those institutions And representatives from them help guide our efforts, which, as Fed just mentioned, involve often fundraising to support the science preparation for Reuben LSST. Our members also enjoy some extra benefits with our programs, although our programs are generally open to everyone. And whereas the science collaborations provide a community of individuals that get brought together and work together, LSST Corporation is a community of institutions, all of which are committed to get as much as they can and do as much as they can for the community related to LSST. So the way we approach our goal is soliciting funds from private philanthropists and using those funds to create programs that support preparations in LSST science. We enjoy working very closely with the Rubin Observatory Project and the science collaborations. And some examples of how we would do that are, so currently we are partnering with Rubin Observatory on, I can give you two particular example programs. We are working to increase outreach to small and underserved institutions and help bring researchers at those institutions actively into the LSST community. And we've just recently started communicating with the EPO office at Rubin Observatory about helping participants in LSST sponsored programs who create newsworthy results, help them publicize those results to the community, and also how participants in some of our programs might be able to help the EPO office achieve their goals as well. As Fed just mentioned, we are often look to the science collaborations, as so many people do, for guidance and input. And we have formalized some of that guidance in the sense that we have one of our seats on our executive board is reserved for the coordinator of the science collaborations. And at LSSTC, we have a science collaborations advisory committee that we look to help us create programs that will be truly, again, as Fed said, impactful for the broad community. Next slide. You might know of some of our past and current programs and maybe not have connected those to LSST Corporation. For example, if you're a member of a science collaboration, if you've ever applied for Enabling Science grant, those are sponsored by LSST Corporation. I think we're in our 6th year and have funded about 84 small projects. And here by small, we mean usually they're about $20,000 or less. So the vast majority are workshops. So some funding that helps a particular collaboration get together and have a workshop, although we do also, some of those are other types of projects like undergrad internships or the plastic competition that Fed mentioned. We have also run the Data Science Fellowship Program or support that is out of Northwestern, and that initiated as a small pilot program through the Enabling Science Small Grants Program. For those of you who are not familiar, the Data Science Fellowship Program is a supplementary training program for graduate students in data science, and it's grown to be immensely popular and of value for graduate students. We also enjoy bringing undergraduates to the Project and Community Workshop of Reuben LSST. We did that for 2 years to help them present their summer projects. Unfortunately, last year that was canceled due to COVID, but we look forward to continuing that program. We also like to do and support some more innovative types of workshops that are different than what tends to happen in the community. So in particular, workshops at which research participants can compete for some seed funding at the workshop itself. So we can do things, since we use private funding, that's not typically allowed with federal funding. So we distributed honoraria for participants in our Cadence Hackathon to write white papers. And then at a later meeting called the Managing Follow-Up workshop, we're able to work with one of our member institutions, Las Cumbres Observatory, to distribute seed funding and or observing time to 15 teams that competed and that were formed or worked together at that workshop. Next, please. Although, like many organizations and groups, we did have some setbacks and are still having some as a result of the pandemic. In particular, right before the pandemic hit, we had run our first fundraising salon to try to recruit new donors, new individual donors. And we were not able to continue that type of activity throughout the pandemic. However, we were very pleased to learn that many foundations understood how hard it would be for scientists to continue their work during the pandemic. And so several foundations did step up and engage with us in discussions about helping us move our ability to support the community from a modest level to a much larger level. And so I'm happy to report today that we are currently working with 2 foundations in serious conversations with them about multi-million-dollar programs that would support the Reuben LSST science community. If you're curious, you can contact me directly, but just briefly, one is a LSST focused postdoctoral fellowship program, and another one would put teams of software engineers at several institutions and allowing them to work to help lead development of what used to be called the level 3 software or analysis tools, now the user-generated tools for the community. Next. So just to summarize briefly, our mission is to support the Reuben science community, and we do that in several ways by to prepare for what's coming right around the corner, by fostering community, by creating programs, and now increased focus on creating analysis tools that will be needed by the community, and always working with the science collaborations as we do it. Thank you.
Right, I'd like to thank all our presenters. And if everyone who has been presenting would like to switch on their camera, that would be great. We haven't had too many questions really come in at all on the Slack channel. There was one question on Slack which was answered, but I'll ask it here anyway. It was from Jim Small, and in case Amanda or anybody else would like to add to it, the question is there a good program I can use with my Intro to Astronomy classes or with our amateur astronomy group?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Hey, Bob, you can stop sharing your screen if you want. So thanks for your question, Jim. As we said on the Slack channel, there's an education and public outreach team within the Reuben Construction Project who, as part of their construction project, is building a whole suite of resources specifically for the classroom, both in English and Spanish, from middle school all the way through introductory, like College 101 courses, non-majors, with all the teacher guides, support materials, ties to curriculum in both US and Chile, and also in a way that you don't have to download any sort of data or software or worry about anything. You just kind of visit a URL. So those things are currently being user tested. We're putting them inside of classrooms and with educators to make sure that they meet all the needs that educators have to work with data in their classroom. And then they'll become available in kind of a rollout as we move into operations. They'll be publicly available for free to anyone who wants to use them.
Anyone have anything to add? I'm not sure if Jim is maybe looking for his unmute. No. Okay.
Oh, that's perfect.
Great. If anybody else who is on has questions, I'm not sure how to really know whether anyone has questions. Best thing is to head over to the, well, you could unmute yourself, I guess. switch on your camera. Let us know you have a question. Anyone? If not, there were a couple of questions that have been coming in at the booth, which I think might be good to ask here as well in this forum. One of the questions was the LSST was about the Data Science Fellowship Program, actually. And the question was, do admissions for the program happen every year, on what cadence and what time of year?
It is once a year, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, it's once a year. I don't remember the exact when those applications go in, but if you do Google search and find their website, they have a very nice informative website.
Thanks, Jenna.
I think it's around the springtime, isn't it? Maybe March or April that they tend to accept applications.
Okay, another one that came in earlier in the week was, will the Rubin Observatory data be public?
Bob, you could take that, or I could take it.
Could Ranpal repeat the question and then I'll give it a shot?
Sure. Will the Rubin Observatory data be public?
So the Reuben data will be public to every scientist in Chile and the United States. And those scientists in the rest of the world that we have individual data rights agreements with. That last part is the thing that connects to what Phil Marshall was talking about with the in-kind contributions. Otherwise, the data are proprietary to those groups, and they will be accessed through our Reuben Science platform. Now, they stay proprietary for they stay proprietary for 2 years, and then they will be available to the public, but we don't yet have a full plan of how we would make those 2-year and longer data products available generally, but we're working on it. So check back and we'll have a better answer there.
Thanks, Bob. Question came up on Slack just now from Chris Davis. Federica Bianca mentioned that the science collaborations were seeking funding. Is this group working within the LSST Corporation?
Actually, are they working with LSSTC? And I think the answer is yes, but Jenna should comment.
We do try to work closely with the science collaborations, although sometimes they do also lead their own fundraising efforts, in particular with NSF proposals. They've submitted some very broad NSF proposals. We seek only private funding, but generally we work together, but they also have freedom to do something that might be very specific to some specific interest that they have. So they have the freedom to do that, of course. I'm not sure about the particular thing that Fed mentioned.
Yeah, remember Fed reminded us in her video that the science collaborations are completely autonomous. They're groups of scientists getting together to work on science they want to do with Reuben's LSST, and they work closely with LSSTC because there's opportunities there, and that's LSSTC's mission, is to help in any way they can. And of course, they connect directly to Reuben because we recognize that they are some of our most committed, knowledgeable, and hardworking science community members.
Michael Strauss did also answer on the Slack channel that the answer is yes, that there's a great deal of discussion and communication between the groups. Another question that came in was, how many job openings do you expect to have in the next 2 to 3 years?
So I'll take a shot at that. We are working closely with the construction team. Victor Krabendam and I talk constantly about the transition to operations from construction. So many of our roles in operations will come from people working on a construction project, but not all. And I would foresee some 10s, maybe 30 jobs, roles overall opening up in the next few years as we get closer to operations, of which a modest number would be scientist type roles. And Victor might want to comment just briefly on, are they still hiring for for construction project jobs? And I think the answer is yes, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, Bob, that's true. We are primarily on the back end of the project, although a few very specific positions, I believe, remain open. Amanda might have a comment on how we're doing on some of the EPO jobs for development of the back end. And we also have plans to start operations up with some observing specialists so that they can help us through commissioning and then also fold into operations at the right time. But for the most part, we are not expecting to put out too many more new hires.
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment for those who are wondering why I'm answering all of the education and public outreach questions. My other hat is that I'm the head of the education and public outreach group, both for construction and moving into operations. We are at the final stages of staffing up our team. So we're hiring a back-end developer right now. So I think the ad's still out on lsst.org/hiring if you wanted to go see that. And then as we make our transition into operations, we'll be working with the Noir Lab program to make sure that we have the appropriate staffing moving forward. So that would be the place to go look as we start moving into operations.
Thanks, everyone. I've actually put a hypothetical question in here, which while we've got 55 participants on, I will try and answer myself and let anyone else chime in. I've seen that you don't want the VRO acronym to be used. Can you please tell me why? And I know that Steve did answer this early on when we started the presentation, and we had it on our rolling slides as well. So we really want to celebrate the name Vera C. Rubin Observatory. We want the name Vera to be repeated as much as possible. If you need to shorten it, we recommend using Reuben as the short form. We really want to avoid VRO, which it just hides the real name of our observatory. Like I said, we want to celebrate that we've been named after a woman. I'll let anyone else add their part to that.
Nope, that's the reason. It's a good one.
Okay.
I agree. That's an excellent reason. This is Mike Bolte. I have a comment, not a question, for this about this whole team. You know, in a construction project of this magnitude, very detailed schedules, everything's linked, and to have a curveball like COVID tossed in, the response that you have had to that has really been remarkable, in my opinion. You had to set up a whole new set of important tasks with winter coming on at the summit. And it's very impressive, in my opinion, just how well you've handled it. So I'd like to offer my congratulations.
And we appreciate that, Michael. We know you've had a few curveballs yourself.
I'm an expert in curveballs.
I mean, Steve and the team at Slack and the camera have done a great job, and Victor and his whole team at Chile have done a fantastic job, and also working with the Noir Lab folks to support this. It's been a real team effort, but you're right, Mike, that these folks have done a great job keeping it going.
I don't see or hear any other questions. So I think I'll wrap it up. Once again, thank you to all the presenters. We had over 70 participants at some point during the meeting, so I think that's really great. And please feel free to continue asking us questions on the Slack channel. We will continue to try to answer your questions, or visit us at the booth, even better. Come through to where we've got Coffee Corner. That will take you into the Zoom room, which we are sitting in patiently waiting for visitors almost all day long. Remember that the DP0 info sessions are going to be held at 2 p.m. tomorrow and 3 p.m. on Thursday. That's both in Eastern time. And we've got a competition running. You've got a chance to win some new logo swag. So come by, there's a winner every day for that quiz. And I would just like to thank everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rampal.
Thanks, Rampal.
Thank you. Bye-bye.